During the campaign, Donald Trump assured us that a Trump victory would mean respect for America again. We're going to be so respected, he'd tell us, right? Even though we learned from his first administration, the comparison between surveys of citizens in other countries versus their allies, perception of the United States under Trump versus under Biden, that he was probably wrong. We probably would lose respect, especially with the countries we should care about their perspective on us, like our allies, countries we share core principles with. But he kept saying it. We're gonna finally be more respected than ever under Donald Trump. And the video you were seeing on screen is what I want to play for you, taking you back to what world leaders were saying when Trump wasn't there and wasn't listening. Before getting to that and some other examples of the lack of respect that the world has for Trump, this being particularly relevant amid the Putin talks and how he's putting really our principles to shame. And he's scaring the hell out of our allies as he seems to be more fond of Putin than of our allies. But first, a reminder of what do I mean when I say that he made this promise? Well, he would say this and things like it quite frequently on the campaign trail. If you appreciate this show, please do click the subscribe button. That's the free option. If you want to go a step further and support even more, you can become a member by clicking the join button below.
For a very short period of time, and it's almost like nobody even cares about it. Very simply, Kamala Harris is not...
Very simply, Kamala Harris. What's this next word? Shoot, I should have pre-read this.
Fit to be your president. We can't have it happen. We can't have it happen. We're going to make this country strong again. We're going to make it great again. We're going to be respected again.
We're going to be respected again, he says. Presumably, he means by the rest of the world. Because surely he didn't mean we're going to be respected again by Luke Beasley, because that didn't end up happening. I respect the United States, you know, the underlying respect I have for my country, but not the Donald Trump. Here is another example.
So in Mexico, which is a real threat to us, by the way, in two ways. They're killing hundreds of thousands of people by letting fentanyl, another thing, come through our border. We should stop it. I had it stopped. I had it very close to stopped. I had the strong...
And by that, he means that fentanyl overdose deaths were skyrocketing throughout his administration.
Strongest border in history. Now we have the worst border in the history of the world. I had the strongest border. The day you saw the chart, the day I left office, I had the strongest border in the history.
Yeah, that chart was fraudulent and didn't show the massive spike as you were leaving office.
Of our country. Now we have the worst border ever in the world. There's never been a border in the world where 21 million people were allowed to come across.
True. Ours neither.
Almost at one time. It's crazy what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But we're going to have a country that's going to be strong and respected again. We're going to have a country.
All right, so as we check in on his campaign promises, let's see. Were we? Are we? Will we be respected? The Guardian reports on the clip that I'll play for you. Video has emerged, and this is back from 2019 when he was last president, that appears to show world leaders joking about Donald Trump at the NATO summit in London, which has been marked by sharp disagreements over spending, etc. The footage shows leaders including Boris Johnson, Justin Trudeau, and Emmanuel Macron at a function at Buckingham Palace on Tuesday evening. And then it quotes some of what we're going to hear them say right here. So again, this is a little flashback to what they would say when they were talking about the Donald. So it's hard to hear some of what they're saying, but they're talking about how Trump had this really long press conference, and that's how it's attached to probably being words spoken about Trump because they had just witnessed this long, rambling press conference that he delivered. And he just kept talking about Hannibal Lecter. Can you imagine? He started rambling 15 minutes in about the, it looks like I'm doing their voices. He started rambling about the manhood of Arnold Palmer. I don't know. Is it really that big? I mean, no, wait, that's not what I mean. That was weird. They were talking about Arnold's rooster. Yeah, so that's kind of the nature of that little bit of footage. But remember, it wasn't just that time. In front of the UN, he also had this moment.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
I'm just gonna keep smiling, but this is the worst moment of my entire life. This really sucks. Literally laughed out by the world there. And you also had little moments during that same speech, if I'm not mistaken, where the camera would cut to members of the audience. This was German folks, and their faces looked visibly uncomfortable.
Russian energy, if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers. It has been the formal policy of our country since.
So they look really uncomfortable, as it feels like we're watching, in class in grade school, when you would be asked to read something aloud and you've never read it before and you're not amazing at reading. And so you're sort of stumbling through it. It's so uncomfortable. It almost gets worse. Your reading gets worse because so many people are listening to you. That's what it came off as. The expansionist goals. So that was the first term. And now we're in the second term. And now it's almost worse because much of the discontent or lack of respect for Trump that then does, unfortunately, reflect on the United States, it came from his lack of experience, his lack of intellect, lack of skill sets, right? The cartoonish nature of him. But that's far less damning and destructive. And it actually is less harmful to the long-term relations with the United States than the authoritarianism that we're seeing in this second term that's really ramping up. The utter lack of care for core fundamental American values and values that we were supposed to have shared with some of our allies. But instead, I think the best example of what I'm talking about is how he's acting right now in his talks with Putin regarding Russia's invasion of Ukraine, with the absolutely insane statement he recently made, which we're about to talk about more in a different segment, about Zelensky essentially being to blame for the war. And so the first time around, okay, he got laughed at, they gossiped about him, whatever, really. That used to be embarrassing to me until I saw that it could be much, much worse, because now they're quite literally, some of the people you saw there are quite literally panicking over whether the United States can be a trusted ally any longer. They're holding emergency meetings to say, what do we do in response to Trump's alignment with Putin? And that is far more damaging and destructive than anything we saw with the embarrassing moment in the first term. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you want to support the show in the amazingest way, to use a term, you can do it by clicking that join button below.